Kia ora, good afternoon. So I'm sitting here thinking, the fire, movie ideas, blah, 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 because I need to cover, obviously, everything. And I thought there's one kind of genre that I haven't covered, and that's gangster movies. So I was thinking, everyone does movies about the mafia and, Russians and all of that. And I thought, wouldn't it be funny to do a gangster movie, but call it like where the gang's called like the Manawatu Massive or something. I used to tell my students in that when I took our show on the road and we were going to make the shows that would be like, Mystery Inside Histories and all of that, once we were all together in America, I was going to put a sign on my RV, call it the Manawatu Jandal Club. Jandals, to anyone who's not a Kiwi, they're called flip-flops. You wear them in the summer. And I was sitting thinking, like, wouldn't it be funny if we did like a gangster movie where it was like a bunch of Kiwi kids, sort of 18, 19 up to about 25, 26, where they watch so many gangster movies and that they think they're gangster. And so maybe they get hired to do a job or something and they're bragging, I could do that. And then someone comes along and says, hey, can you do a hit for me or something? And everything goes wrong. It's like, I think I want it to be like a comedy, kind of like Pulp Fiction, where, there's a little bit of the serious, but there's also a little bit of comedy, like, that iconic Pulp Fiction Quentin Tarantino style movie that he does, where even though it might have serious themes, there's always like a bit of comedy. And I thought, like, what if it's where they think, like, where they think they're the Latin King, but they're from like Scotland or, like New Zealand, like from a really tiny place in like Tauranga or like Nelson, or, like the last place on earth where you would think that they would have Latin King, and it being like, oh yeah, nah, because my cousin, like if it was in New Zealand, yeah, nah, because my cousin is married to a Latin King, so that means like I'm a Latin King because my cousin was married to a Latin King, so now I know all about that stuff, eh? Like if we made it in New Zealand, if we filmed it in New Zealand, where it was a whole pile of like Kiwis and Maori boys and that thinking they were the Latin King because they watch all these gangster movies, and so they think they can be gangster and they listen to all the rap and that rap and that, but they're completely out of their depth. And then obviously they get asked to like do this job for someone and completely screw it up because they actually have no idea what they're talking about because they're first shite. But it all starting because this one guy thinks he's a Latin King by marriage. No, I'm a Latin King by marriage. Because my husband's a Latin King, which would have made me like his queen. So I was his queen, so I wasn't a Latin queen, but I was his queen. Because he was a king, he was actually made, he was King Ace. So, so I could turn the gangster movie into a comedy. How are you a Latin king? You're from Whangarei. Nah, I'm a Latin king by marriage. That would be hilarious. That would be hilarious. It doesn't necessarily have to be the Latin King, but the reason why I'm thinking Latin King, and I could just make up a fake gangster name, obviously, but this is just an example, is because like it's the least likely name for a gang that you would expect coming from, coming from small town New Zealand. Latin King by marriage. But it would be like Pulp Fiction in the fact, obviously, there'd be a bit of blood and stuff like that, but at the same time, and we'd have to have like really good music for the soundtrack. But it would give me an opportunity, if we made it in New Zealand, to highlight some of New Zealand's musical talent, like Shei Fu. I love Shei Fu. I could even ask him to do some songs for it or something. So my Kiwi accent's really coming out strong with this one. So yeah, gangster movie. The name of the gang, it doesn't necessarily have to be New Zealand, but it just would be funny. Like, it would be very funny. And we're going to be filming some of the war babies in New Zealand anyway. So it would just be... and then what I was thinking as well is that for any Kiwi kids that wanted to get involved that weren't connected to fire, I could maybe contact the education minister or whoever in New Zealand and say, hey, look, can you put out like a APB in New Zealand for any kids that want to act in this movie or be a part of helping to make the movie. So, yeah, so gangster movie. I don't know, I was going to call it the Manawatu Massive, but the Manawatu where I'm from is, you got Foxton, we could call it the Foxton Massive, or the Bulls Massive, or the Samson Massive, which if you're not from New Zealand, you're not going to know, but they're tiny. The Otaki Massive, the Levin Massive, they're tiny, tiny, tiny little farming communities. But Bulls is where we've got our marae and we've got our family cemetery out there. That's where all my family are buried. But yeah, oh my God, that would be so funny. We'll get some good comedy writing in there. So yeah, Latin King by marriage, that would just be so funny. So anyway, so that's another idea. It's just a seed. Like I said, it might not be the Latin King per se, but it's just, it needs to be something where the name of the gang, like if they were going to be the mafia, then it's a whole pile of Polynesians acting like the Italian gangsters. Do you know what I mean? Which, yeah, the mafia, the whole origins of the mafia was when it basically came about because someone's daughter got R-worded and all the men got together, my daughter, to take care of the person that did it. And yeah, and then so they got together and started, looking after the neighbourhoods and that, protecting all the women and the kids and that from all the troublemakers, and then it kind of snowballed from there. But the whole point of the movie would be like Pulp Fiction, like Quentin Tarantino, where there'd be comedy, there'd be iconic music, but there'd also be, like serious. They'd have to, so they'll get asked to do a job for someone, and they're all like acting like they're all shit hot, but in actual fact they're completely inept and don't know what the hell they're doing, and they kind of have to wing it. I've already kind of tentatively thought of a storyline, just like a quick one, but it needs more meat and bones on it. So yeah, so don't hold anything to gospel as per usual. Names may change, stories may change, locations may change, that sort of thing, but it's another seed that's planted. But that would just be funny. Oh, yeah, no, I'm a Latin King by marriage. What do you know about Latin Kings? You're from Whangarei. Oh, God. Anyway, I'm going to go. I'll speak to you later. Ka kite anō. Mwah.